The rain outside was hitting the windows of the dimly lit restaurant, creating spooky shadows that moved across the old wooden tables. The scent of sizzling meats and garlic filled the air, but there was an unsettling tension that made me uncomfortable. Unbeknownst to me, this night would remain in my memory as an unforgettable nightmare. After a tiring day of sightseeing, my family and I found this charming small place by chance. We couldn't wait to try the genuine local food advertised by the sign outside. As we sat down, I couldn't help but sense that something was wrong. The waiter, who looked untidy and tired, gave us menus that felt sticky when I touched them. Through a tiny window, you could catch a glimpse of the chef in the kitchen, a stout man with a mischievous smile. He had on a dirty apron that appeared to not have been cleaned in a long time. His eyes were keen and shrewd, resembling a predator assessing its potential target. My unease deepened. While we chatted, the atmosphere became more intense as we received a variety of dishes. The sound of utensils clattering against dishes resonated in the room, creating an eerie tune. The rain intensified outside, as if nature could feel the approaching darkness within. The food arrived quickly, and each dish was carefully and beautifully arranged. I noticed how the chef looked through the kitchen window with an evil gleam in his eye. I ignored my gut feeling, thinking it was just my imagination. Unbeknownst to me, my fear was justified. When I took my first bite of the beef stew, it had a strange taste that reminded me of metal and made me feel uneasy. I quickly looked at my family, but they were too focused on their own food to realize. While discreetly checking the meat on my fork, I noticed a peculiar shimmer that made me feel concerned. I pretended to go to the restroom so that I could explore more. The poorly lit hallway to the restrooms made me more anxious with its creaky floorboards. I heard a whispered conversation as I approached the kitchen door. "Tonight's the night, Frankie," the chef whispered to a mysterious figure in the corner, saying, "I've waited a long time for this." I strained to hear, feeling my heart race in my chest. It became evident that the chef, Frankie, had a strong grudge against my family. I was filled with shock and fear when I realized that we were the victims of his evil plan. I returned to my seat, with my thoughts in a whirlwind. What steps can I take to keep my family safe from the approaching threat? I quietly advised them to stop eating. As I quietly mentioned the chef's evil scheme, their confused looks transformed into worry. At the moment of panic, the chef appeared from the kitchen with a sinister smile on his face. With a knife in his hand, he came towards our table, causing the room to freeze. He sneered and locked eyes with me, asking if we were enjoying our meal. In a state of panic, I hastily exclaimed, "We are aware of your actions, and we won't allow you to escape the consequences." As the other customers watched, unaware of the approaching danger, a sense of tension filled the air. The chef's eyes showed a combination of anger and amusement. Briefly, with venomous contempt, he angrily insulted the meddling fool. "Do you believe you have the ability to prevent me? You don't know who you're dealing with." The truth suddenly struck me with great force. Frankie, the chef, was not your typical cooking antagonist. He had a grudge and carried out a vengeful plan, causing us to be caught in the middle. The restaurant turned into a battlefield, filled with a noticeable feeling of threat in the air. The chef came towards us with a knife in a frantic and unpredictable way. We skillfully dodged and maneuvered to narrowly avoid his lethal attacks. We started to panic when we fully understood the seriousness of our situation, recognizing it as a battle for survival. In the midst of all the chaos, I made eye contact with Frankie, and suddenly I realized something. He wasn't just any psychopath, but rather an old enemy, a nemesis from my distant past that I had tried to forget. My family was suffering the consequences because his anger was driven by our connection. After the other diners ran away, we were left alone in this eerie struggle for survival. The rain outside mirrored the chaos inside the restaurant, as the sounds of clattering cutlery and the chef's manic laughing combined to create a frightening symphony. Amidst the intense battle, fueled by adrenaline coursing through me, I understood that our only hope lay in fleeing the restaurant. Summoning all our bravery, we successfully defeated the chef and urgently raced towards the exit. As we struggled for air, the rain outside offered a comforting shield. We stopped a police car that was passing by and quickly told them about the terrifying experience we had just gone through. The officers quickly entered the restaurant, but it was empty. It turned out that the chef in charge had set up a dangerous scheme to harm an innocent family. In the following days, the authorities investigated Frankie's troubled history, revealing a complex story of payback and grudge. My previous actions had caused him to become insane, leading to the creation of a vengeful monster. The restaurant, formerly a safe place for customers, now served as a disturbing reminder of the dangers that can exist unnoticed. With the news stories about the terrible restaurant and its crazy chef, I couldn't help but feel grateful that I had narrowly avoided a horrifying fate. The rain kept falling, cleansing the wrongs of that dreadful night. However, the twisted chef's laughter and the taste of poisoned stew remained in my mind, reminding me of the real horror that can hide behind a seemingly normal meal. I found a creepy place called Eerie Eats on a dark and gloomy night. It had an old-fashioned atmosphere with a flickering neon sign. Although I had a feeling it wasn't a good decision, I was hungry and it was the only available option in the area. As I walked in, a bell chimed and a strong, unpleasant odor overwhelmed me, a combination of oil, despair, and unknown elements. I sat down in a vinyl booth, feeling the cracked red leather cling to my jeans. The menu seemed very outdated, but I thought, well, sometimes those types of restaurants have unexpected offerings. Unbeknownst to me, I was about to experience a horrific night. The thin and mustached waiter gave me a menu that was sticky like honey. He looked around swiftly, as if he had witnessed too many things. Despite recognizing it as a sign, I ignored it because my hunger overpowered my judgment. I chose the mystery meat special since it matched the location. The server quickly wrote down my order before going into the dark kitchen. While waiting, I observed a man sitting at the bar, slowly sipping on a cup of coffee. He had wide, frantic eyes that quickly moved around, as if he thought the bougie man would appear at any moment. The food came earlier than I thought, and it was a pile of unknown mush on a cracked dish. The waiter quickly gave me a glance that was both sympathetic and cautionary before promptly leaving. After some hesitation, I took a bite and trust me, it had a taste of regret and despair. The meat, which was hardly meat, had a texture so unappetizing that it made rubber bands seem fancy. However, since I was famished, I resorted to extreme measures. While I was thinking about the decisions I've made in my life, the man I met at the bar became overwhelmed. With a loud bang, he forcefully placed his coffee cup on the table, causing the sound to reverberate in the deserted place. He loudly expressed his displeasure, questioning the quality of the food and the establishment's reputation. His voice was harsh, breaking the silence. The waiter hurriedly approached, attempting to soothe the man's emotions. Bad move. The man forcefully grabbed the waiter's collar, bringing his eyes very close to the waiter's face. "Do you hear me? I am going to harm the chefs," he angrily shouted. "Get rid of them," as his spit sprayed while speaking. I nearly choked on the unidentifiable meat. The situation quickly got out of control. The man began yelling loudly, threatening to cause violent harm at the location. The other customers sat scared and shocked in their seats, looking like startled rabbits in front of a car. I considered running away, but my legs were heavy like metal. The waiter was able to escape by wiggling and ended up stumbling backwards. He took out his phone, possibly to contact the police, but the unstable person attacked him once more. There was a strong feeling of tension in the air, and it felt like fear was palpable. The chef, a slightly overweight man wearing a dirty apron, came out of the kitchen. He appeared exhausted, as if encountering crazy people was a regular occurrence on Tuesday evenings. He clumsily approached the man, attempting to negotiate with him. Reason had departed the premises a while back. The crazed man quickly turned around and made eye contact with me. I felt a shiver run down my back, the type you experience when you realize you are encountering a completely insane person. He stumbled towards my table, moving in a shaky and unexpected way. I felt a rush of panic when he leaned in, coming extremely close to my face. Backslash, 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 can backslash, 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 you taste it? He warned, with a foul smell on his breath, that this situation will make you go crazy, and he needs to rescue everyone. His eyes were red and his pupils were wide like those of a predator about to attack. I nervously stuttered as I attempted to convince him that I was only passing by, but instead of calming him down, my words only seemed to make him angrier. His face twisted into a wicked smile as he firmly gripped the back of my booth. Sweat was starting to gather on my forehead, and my heart was beating rapidly. The sound of a siren became increasingly louder as time went by. The insane person quickly turned his head in the direction of the noise, causing him to momentarily lose touch with reality. The owner took advantage of the situation, gripping him by the shoulders and pulling him towards the exit. The police entered the place forcefully while the disturbed individual flailed and yelled, causing his threats to reverberate throughout the establishment. 3 officers had to physically subdue him, each finding it challenging to control his unusually strong frenzy. The entire area was filled with disorder. Lights were flashing, people were yelling, and a strong sense of fear permeated the air. I only noticed the mysterious tattoo on a crazy guy's wrist, a faded barcode like the ones in movies about escaped convicts and psychos. When he was being dragged out, I suddenly realized that this guy was more than just an unhappy customer. He was actually an escaped patient from a mental hospital, and he had just caused a chaotic scene at Eerie Eats. As the police forced him into the police car, I couldn't help but feel a combination of relief and ongoing terror. The restaurant truly embodied its name. It was definitely spooky. I moved the unfinished unknown meat aside because I realized I wasn't as hungry as I thought. Even though the place may have made it through the night, I was aware that the feeling of fear in the air would stay with me indefinitely.